This is the August 22nd, 2018 afternoon session of the Portland City Council. Carla, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Saltzman?
Here.
Udaly?
Here.
Fritz?
Here.
Fish? Wheeler?
Here. Carla, could you please read the item for this afternoon?
Do we want to read the lawyer statement?
Oh, yes, sorry, the lawyer statement. How could I forget?
Sure, lawyer statement. All right. Welcome to the Portland City Council. The City Council represents all Portlanders and meets to do the city's business. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during City Council meetings so that everyone can feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to speak briefly about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony and resolutions or first readings of ordinances. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When you have 30 seconds left, a yellow light goes on. When your time is done, a red light goes on. If you are in the audience and would like to show your support for something that is said, please feel free to do a thumbs up. If you want to express that you do not support something, please feel free to do a thumbs down. Disruptive conduct, such as shouting or interrupting testimony or council deliberations, will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being ejected for the remainder of the meeting. After being ejected, a person who fails to leave the meeting is subject to arrest for trespass. Thank you for helping your fellow Portlanders feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe.
Very good, thank you. And before I forget, we have a couple of people benefiting from our translation service this afternoon. And so, ladies, if you could just wave if we're going too slowly, or I mean, excuse me, if we're speaking too, now I need a translation service. If we're going too quickly, could you just wave and catch our attention and we'll... Okay, great, fabulous, terrific, thank you. All right, Carla, can you read the item, please?
Yes, item 901, amend the comprehensive plan map, zoning map, Title 33, planning and zoning, Title 18, noise control, Title 32, signs and related regulations, to create the residential manufactured dwelling park designation and base zone.
Colleagues, despite recent headlines that indicate that rent increases may be evening out or potentially even declining, that's not the case for lower cost market rate housing, including manufactured dwellings, also commonly known as mobile homes. Mobile home parks play a unique and important role, offering lower cost market rate housing, especially for larger units that can accommodate families. Because people can own their own home and only have to rent a space, a mobile home can be an affordable pathway to home ownership for lower income households. As I expect we will hear in testimony today, these mobile home parks offer a sense of community that's attractive to residents and different from other housing choices. For these reasons, the city wants to support the long-term stability of these parks. With this ordinance, the city is adopting a new approach to zoning mobile home parks. This is an emergency ordinance. An emergency exists due to the fact that Portland's continued population and economic growth have had a significant impact on rental housing, resulting in a more than 30% increase in average rents from 2011 through 2017, and consistently low vacancy rates between 1.7% and 3.3% from 2011 to 2017. Manufactured dwelling parks play a small but important part in providing affordable housing, and the incentives to promote this housing type should be available immediately. My co-sponsors, Commissioners Fritz and Udaley, would like to make a few comments. Commissioner Fritz?
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler. I'm really happy to be here today. This work implements a comprehensive plan policy that I worked on with Mayor Hales and the community, the colleagues on the council, and with staff in the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability back in 2016. And so it's exciting to see where it was 2018, just 2 years later, this is coming forward. And thanks to everybody in the community who's helped work on it, and to the Planning and Sustainability Commission. The comprehensive plan policy is policy 5.37, mobile home parks, which says, encourage preservation of mobile home parks as a low, moderate income housing option. Evaluate plans and investments for potential redevelopment pressures on existing mobile home parks and impacts on park residents, and protect this low, moderate income housing option. Facilitate replacement and alteration of manufactured homes within an existing mobile home park. So we are now routinely referring to them as manufactured dwelling parks, of course recognizing that although the word is mobile, many of your homes, these homes, are not mobile at all. They don't move, and it's hard to find a place for them to go if they are displaced. This is one of the most important forms of naturally occurring affordable housing in Portland. Some of the most vulnerable communities in Portland live there, and it's important that we respect and provide assistance for vulnerable and underrepresented communities. I believe this change carries forward the Council's intent to provide incentives and options for making the parks financially viable for owners, thus allowing residents to stay there. And I'm very excited to be here. Thank you, Mayor Wheeler, for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Udaley.
Mayor and Commissioner Fritz, it's an honor to co-sponsor this item with you, and I think you've covered almost everything. I guess I'd just say we need a diversity of housing options, and in order to guarantee that, we need to come up with some creative incentives for creating those. So thank you for this.
Very good. We have Tom Armstrong from the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. He's going to help introduce today's session. Good afternoon, Tom.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners. I just wanted to give a brief overview of the proposal in front of you today. You know, the City of Portland has 57 different manufactured dwelling parks. They come in all different shapes and sizes, and many of them were built in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. But as you can see from this map, many are located in East Portland and Southeast Portland, and some in the Cully neighborhood along Northeast Killingsworth. There is, with these actions today, we are rezoning 56 out of the 57 parks in Portland. There is one park up off of Northeast Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. It's called Fox Run. It's up by Delta Park. It's in the middle and surrounded by the prime industrial area, and it's actually zoned for employment use and is part of our prime industrial overlay. It's part of Metro's Title IV prime industrial overlay, and there was just a number of employment land supply issues tied up with that site that we could not, at this point in time, do the map change for that site itself. But we can take a look at that in the future once we have a handle on where we sit with our industrial land supply. As it said in the title, to implement this zoning, it requires a comprehensive plan policy amendment to create a new land use designation and to apply that to the map, the comprehensive plan map. And then as part of the zoning code, we're creating a new base zone for manufactured dwelling parks, and then corresponding zoning map changes. As part of that new base zone, it will be for manufactured dwelling parks. In addition to that, we are creating a limited retail and sales and service use for recreational vehicle parks, because sometimes those are co-located in the same facility. And then all of the other institutional categories in the zoning code that are allowed in the other multi-dwelling zones are also allowed here. So you could co-locate daycares or schools or medical facilities as part of a limited or conditional use in these zones. Also with this new zone, we are creating a number of incentives that we think will help support and sustain the operations of these parks. The first one is we are resolving a number of parks that are currently non-conforming uses. Right now, today, manufactured dwelling parks are only allowed in the R3 and R2 zones. And there are 17 other parks that have different zoning. And some of this goes back, way back to the parks were established before county zoning was applied, and then that county zoning rolled over to the city zoning when we annexed East Portland. And so these changes will resolve those non-conforming uses and make those parks an allowed use. At the same time, we are increasing the density on, I believe it's 52 of the 56 parks. The density recommended by the Planning and Sustainability Commission is slightly higher than what's allowed in the R2 zone today, and that will provide owners of the parks more room to expand their parks on site. And in addition to that, we are also expanding the area where that unused density can be transferred to other multi-dwelling residential sites. Currently, right now, a transfer can only happen on the same block as the site or across the street. And we're expanding that to any other multi-dwelling zone site outside of the central city. So it basically creates two transfer markets, one inside the central city and one outside the central city. So there's a wider market where this underutilized density can be transferred to. At the same time, we are creating an affordable housing bonus. As Mayor Wheeler said, and as we put in our staff report, many of the residents are lower income, and that if a park owner enters into an agreement with the Housing Bureau to provide long-term affordability for half the units at 60% of the area median income, then they'll get an additional density bonus that can either be used on-site or transferred to other sites under the other transfer provisions. We do have in front of you today a series of technical amendments. The first three technical amendments, which are in the August 20th memo from me, make adjustments that when the Planning and Sustainability Commission recommended increasing the density, maximum density, we did not chase down every reference to that density standard, and so we have an amendment to the comprehensive policy to note that increased density as well as the base zone description. And then at the same time, when the density is raised, Metro has a standard that the minimum density required should be 80% of the maximum, and so Amendment 3 will adjust the minimum density to match that. We have two other changes that, as we were preparing the council package, we discovered two changes that were inadvertent errors on our part. One is we made changes to the plan development review section to add a reference to the RMP zone where it shouldn't be, and so we want to take that out. At the same time, we deleted a reference to a minimum space requirement that we thought was in the state code, but it turns out it's not, so we want to restore it to this one. And then finally, new today, we have a substitute exhibit for the findings of fact, and this is in response to testimony that has come in so far, and we wanted to respond to that with up-to-date findings.
So Mayor, I move that as a package.
Second.
So Commissioner Fritz moves, and let's, do you want to also include 6 on this?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So Commissioner Fritz moves amendments 1 through 6 as a package. Commissioner Udaley seconds the package. And with that, we can go ahead and accept public testimony.
I just want to note in the record, we have a number of other supporting documents that help support making this decision today, including a review of the natural resources and hazards that exist today and are protected by our environmental zones today, and there's no change to those, as well as a memo from PBOT on the transportation impacts that might result from new development on these sites.
Very good. Commissioner Saltzman had a question.
Yes.
Yeah, Tom, so you said at the outset that the Fox Run mobile home park is not part of this package?
Yes, that's correct.
Why is that again?
Because it is, it's up north in, just off of MLK Boulevard. It currently is part of our, it has a prime industrial zoning designation both at the city and Metro. And it's in an area where we have a pretty small surplus of industrial land, and that if we were to change that, it would take us to having less than a 1% surplus of industrial land supply. And we felt that at this time, given where we are at in terms of when we did the economic opportunities analysis and determined that we had an adequate supply of industrial land. It's been enough development has gone on in that industrial area that we did not want to take the time at this point to do all the economic studies that we needed to justify changing that that park. I will note that we expect, Metro is currently adopting a new urban growth report, and we'll have a new population and employment forecast allocated to the cities at the end of this year, and that will start an update process for us that we can then factor in changing the zoning on Fox Run as part of an update to the economic opportunities analysis and come back at a later date to try and address that issue.
So, this package is an emergency ordinance in part because it's designed to establish some incentives today at the end of this session.
Yes.
For owners of these parks to keep them residential. So are we at risk? Is Fox Run at risk of falling through the cracks here in the interim?
Fox Run will be at risk in the interim, yes.
So what would be the harm of us including Fox Run in this package today?
I think the harm would be the time it would take, and for us would have taken over the spring. We published this proposal in early May, and so it's been on a pretty fast track. And so what we opted in that decision-making was holding back on Fox Run so the other 56 could go forward with at least an idea as to when we could circle back and address Fox Run itself. And so we prioritized moving forward on the other 56 rather than trying to update our industrial land inventory to try and show that by changing Fox Run, we would still have an adequate supply of industrial land.
Okay, I'm going to think about that as a testimony, but I guess my last question is, so you're saying that if we were to include Fox Run in the package today, the package would not be complete and ready to move forward? Is that what you're saying?
I think there probably is not substantial evidence in the record to support that change and to continue to make a finding that we have an adequate supply of industrial land in that area, and that we have not done the analysis, especially with Metro, to change the the regionally significant industrial area designation that it has on that, and so that it would be that site in particular would be vulnerable to appeal and having it remanded to us.
Okay. As I said, I'm going to think about that
Yeah.
more. Okay.
No.
Very good. Any further questions? Folks, there's a tradition here at City Council, those with small children, elderly, folks with disabilities, any elected officials, please let the council clerk know that, and she'll bump you up to the front of the list. How many folks do we have signed up, Carla?
Currently 16.
16. Very good. Why don't you call up the first three, and the microphones move, and about this much distance is the right amount. Go ahead and leave the microphones turned on. State your name for the record. We do not need your address unless you want to give it to us, but it's not required. And if you are a paid lobbyist, we need to know that. Thank you.
The first three, please come on up, are Jay Perasco, Hannah Cruz, and John Mulvey.
When you have 30 seconds left, the yellow light will go on, and when your time is up, the red light will go on.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Would you like to start, sir?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Jay Perasco, and I am here on behalf of Join, a nonprofit organization that helps Portlanders transition from homelessness to stably housed. Join strongly encourages you to adopt the Manufactured Dwelling Park project. For more than 20 years, Join has been working to ensure that everyone in our community has a home. Each week, we help 15 to 20 Portlanders exit homelessness for stable housing. Our biggest obstacle remains our city's critical shortage of affordable housing, particularly units that are affordable to people exiting homelessness or vulnerable to falling into homelessness. Homelessness is a symptom. The underlying illness is our affordable housing shortage, and the only way to remedy and the only true remedy is to preserve existing affordable housing and create new units, especially for low-income households. That is precisely what the Manufactured Dwelling Park project will do. Manufactured homes are among the most affordable, low-barrier units in Portland's housing inventory. Join has successfully housed formerly homeless clients in manufactured homes, many of whom would still be experiencing homelessness today, but for the availability and accessibility of manufactured homes. Manufactured housing parks are the only housing option available for many people who are transitioning out of homelessness. Manufactured housing parks are also the housing of last resort for people who would end up homeless if the parks are shut down. For many of the 3,000 households, there really may be no other place to go. We need to create more affordable housing, not eliminate 56 affordable, livable communities. Today, you have the ability to preserve 3,000 truly affordable, low-barrier housing units in resilient, hardworking communities across our city. Voting yes will ensure that 3,000 households will not be at imminent risk of homelessness. We applaud Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners Udaley and Fritz for introducing this measure, all of the staff who contributed to the project, and we strongly encourage you to adopt the manufactured dwelling park project today. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler and members of the council. My name is John Mulvey. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Housing Subcommittee of the East Portland Action Plan, and we are strongly supportive of this measure. East Portland is home to 42 of Portland's 56 mobile home parks. That's more than 2,000 East Portland families. The residents are retirees, they're students in our public schools, they're hardworking parents trying to raise their kids in a city that is increasingly unable to provide them with an affordable place to live. These parks can be the only home ownership option for many people, especially those on fixed incomes. These homes often represent the largest financial asset that low-income families have. But mobile home parks are more than lumber and concrete. They're multi-generational communities where people look out for each other. Neighbors drive each other to doctor's appointments, and they pick up things for each other at the supermarket. They're precisely the kind of communities that our city should be supporting. But in our current real estate environment, there is intense pressure to redevelop these properties. In the last 2 years, 6 of Portland's mobile home parks have closed, uprooting the families that once lived there. At least 2 more East Portland parks may be vulnerable to redevelopment right now. That's 38 more families that are facing displacement. They need your help. They need it quickly, and I hope you'll vote to support them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners. I'm Hannah Cruz, Senior Communications Manager with Energy Trust of Oregon, and thank you for taking up the proposed new zoning regulation and designation, as part of your continued focus on combating Portland's affordable housing crisis. Energy Trust is an independent, nonprofit organization serving Oregon's 5 largest utilities and helping those customers save energy and generate clean energy. This includes the customers of Portland General Electric, Pacific Power, and Northwest Natural within the city of Portland. While Energy Trust is not in a position to support or be in opposition to proposed policies, including the zoning ordinance, I wanted to provide you with context regarding the challenges we encounter when helping manufactured homeowners and renters lower their energy use and associated utility bills. According to the Oregon Housing and Community Services, approximately 80,000 manufactured homes in use today were manufactured prior to 1978. So they were manufactured prior to codes being established and are very energy inefficient. This embedded inefficiency forces occupants to spend a disproportionate amount of their income on utility bills and limits their ability to update and maintain their homes. So to help overcome these challenges, Energy Trust is working with manufactured home builders, Oregon Housing and Community Services, nonprofit manufactured home park owners, and others to introduce a pilot program that would help residents replace their old, inefficient manufactured homes with new, efficient manufactured homes. Our incentives that Energy Trust can provide are based upon the energy savings realized over the long-term useful life of the new home. And this can reduce the residents' utility bills, and the incentive amount can also help reduce the amount of that loan principal and associated payments due to the replacement costs. But since our energy incentives are based upon the usable life of the new home, the risk of park closures and eviction reduces the likelihood that the full value of the energy savings will materialize and challenges our ability to expand our pilot program to additional sites in Portland and even beyond. So to the extent that the proposed zoning ordinance in front of you today may reduce the risk of park closures, it would provide Energy Trust with increased certainty of energy savings over the long term and assist us in expanding this pilot program. So I hope you find this context useful, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks, all three of you.
The next three are Lee Reinhold, Mike Connors, and Paul Scott.
Good afternoon. Would you like to start for us, please?
All right.
Thank you.
Name is Lee Reinell. And when I first moved into my place, it was not that safe. A lot of thievery and all that. But now we have a new bunch of people moving in, Mexicans with their children, and it's a really good place to live now. They help. It's a good family place now. It wasn't, but it is now. That's all I can say.
Thank you.
That's a powerful message. Thank you.
I was hoping.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Mike Connors. I'm here on behalf of Hayden Island Enterprises. They're the owners and operators of the Hayden Island Manufactured Home Community and have owned and operated that park since 1992. I've submitted written comments into the record and to each of you. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read those, and I obviously am not going to be able to get through all those points in 3 minutes, but I do want to touch on a couple things. First of all, I just want to acknowledge the fact that my client and I understand that there's a legitimate purpose, intent behind this, and a concern about affordable housing. That's without debate. I think the disagreement or concern from my client's perspective is we don't believe that this is the appropriate manner in which to address this issue. And we believe that's going to result in unintended consequences and is not going to achieve the purpose for which this proposal is being raised. And the main issue has to do with the primary component of this proposal, which restricts the use of these properties to manufactured home parks. By restricting the use to the existing use, which would be the first concept that the city has employed with the zoning code that I'm aware of, that's going to result in a loss in fair market value for that property immediately because you're restricting it to the existing use. And that's going to have some unintended consequences, which we don't believe that the city has really adequately evaluated. I'm going to focus on two of them in my limited time. The first one is a big one that I'm surprised I haven't heard more of a response or analysis to, and that's Measure 49. Measure 49 is a state-adopted voter initiative that provides any land use regulations that restrict the residential use of property in a manner that reduces the fair market value, provides a claim under Measure 49. And a Measure 49 claims would give the city two options: to either compensate the property owners for the loss in value or to waive the regulations. The vast majority of these parks are residentially zoned. This zoning proposal will undoubtedly restrict the residential use of them. So by adopting it in this fashion, the city has exposed itself to a number of lawsuits that park owners could file under Measure 49. I don't believe the city will have the financial resources, and so the result will be the waiver of the regulations, which will undo the whole purpose for this proposal. And the second one, very quickly, is we believe that by reducing the fair market value, you're going to undermine the financial viability of these parks. A reduction in value will make it harder for refinancing, which make it more difficult for park owners to get the necessary finance and to make upgrades. And as a result of that, they're either not going to upgrade or maintain the parks at the level that they do currently, or it's going to result in an increase in rent. And both of those are goals that I think are contrary to the purpose for this proposal. And with that, I'll conclude my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon.
Hello. My name is Paul Scott, and I live at Viking Mobile Home Park in southeast Portland. I've lived in the park approximately 11 years. I own my mobile home, and I'm 76 years old. I live on Social Security retirement benefits. I'm a cancer survivor and have multiple health problems. Last year, I received a rent increase of approximately 14%. This year, I've received a rent increase of about 10%. I'm worried I will not be able to continue to live at the park if these rent increases continue, which apparently they will. In the last 4 years, we've received 3 letters of intent to sell the park. And in August of 2016, it was sold to the Holt Corporation, which operates out of Washington. And the first thing they did was to raise the rent 14%. The second thing was to close the laundromat in the park and try to convert it to apartments. And about July 21st of this year, I heard from my neighbors that the residents of the park had an opportunity to compete to purchase the park because we had recently received our 3rd letter of intent to sell. Prior to this, the management had told me that the park had already been sold. On July 24th, in 2018, I and my neighbors formed the Viking Mobile Villa Residents Committee and served Cheryl Walker, the management of the owner, by mail and email a request for the park's financial statement. Ms. Walker responded with the information, but not all of the financial information we requested. In August, a committee member sent a follow-up email to Ms. Walker for the rest of the financial information. She responded by email that the 10 days is up and we do have a buyer for the property. This matter is now in the, we've requested a court injunction to halt the sale until we can provide a counter offer. I hope that the Portland City Council and a community partner will help us to buy the park and set up a cooperative ownership, or at least provide nonprofit management. It's important we have some control over our homes. And having received 3 intent to sell letters, everybody is really unsure and afraid of what's going to happen in the future.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony, all 3 of you. Thank you. Next 3, please.
Are Anthony Noki, Oscar Cervantes, and Gloria Contreras.
I'm going to interpret consecutively for the Spanish speakers.
Very good. Why don't you go ahead and start, please?
Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler, ladies and gentlemen of the Portland City Council. My name is Anthony Kanoki. I am a disabled veteran representing the growing coalition of manufactured home parks. We have a gift of hundreds of postcards to deliver to you today.
I want to interpret for them to hear in Spanish.
This will be your microphone.
Well, this, okay, that's, okay. No, I don't have to be here.
These were from the hundreds of supporters that have been supporting us. I live at the Arbor Mobile Home Park, one of the many communities the zoning law will help save. These communities are unique in many ways. Each is like a family. But we are the poor, the elderly, the mentally ill, and the disabled. You, by passage of this law, have a chance to get ahead of the housing crisis sweeping through our city. If you act boldly today and pass this in the law, it is morally the right thing to do with this housing crisis. They asked for a volunteer to do this. Here I am. I'm asking you to do the same for them and me. I served in the military and defended my country as a volunteer. Now, I volunteered again, serving and speaking for not only my community, but all the communities. Nonprofits and charities are standing by and lining up to help us. This law will affect 3,000 homes, 10,000 plus people. We need your help in this fight. Stand with us. Vote yes on this law. Save our communities. Whole families live in them. In my park, there are 5 families that own about half the park. Whole families, grandmothers, mothers, daughters, brother-in-laws, sisters, children. They take care of their elderly, they take care of each other, they help take care of me. This crisis will become a flood if you do not vote yes on this law. You need to act. Voting yes is right to protect and save these communities. Societies are judged by how well they take care of the most vulnerable members in it. So please vote yes. Thank you.
Hola, mi nombre es Oscar Cervantes. Soy padre de 3 niños.
Hello, my name is Oscar Cervantes. I'm the father of 3 children.
Nosotros vivimos en un estacionamiento de trailers desde hace 6 años.
We live in a trailer park. We've been living in a trailer park for the last 6 years.
El motivo por el cual estoy aquí presente hoy es porque quiero pedirles en nombre de toda mi comunidad que por favor nos apoyen con la propuesta de zonificación.
The reason I'm here with my whole community is I want to ask you to support this zoning proposal.
Porque es algo que nos podría ayudar a conservar nuestras viviendas y tener nuestras familias más unidas.
It is something that could help us to keep our homes and keep our families more united.
Sería muy difícil para mí y para mi familia dejar a mis amigos de mi comunidad y también para mis hijos.
It would be very difficult for me to leave my friends and my community, and it would also be difficult for my children.
Dejar a sus amigos, su escuela, que es como su segundo hogar.
To leave their friends and their school, which is like their second home.
Porque si se cierra el parque sería muy difícil para nosotros y para más familias encontrar un lugar para nuestras viviendas.
Because if the park is closed, it would be very difficult for us and for our families to find another place for our homes.
Porque muchas de las viviendas no pueden ser movidas.
Because many of the homes really can't be moved.
Perderíamos el dinero invertido que ahorramos con mucho sacrificio para poder arreglarlas.
We would lose all the money that we've invested very sacrificially we've saved very sacrificially to be able to fix it.
Le hemos cambiado el siding, el techo, arreglado el patio para estar mejor con nuestra familia.
We've changed the siding, we've changed the roof, and we've fixed the patio to be there better with our families.
Yo antes de vivir aquí nunca pude estar en un apartamento solo con mi familia por el alto costo de la renta.
Before this, I was not able to be alone in an apartment with my family because of the high cost of rent.
Siempre tenía que compartir el apartamento con otras familias.
I always had to share the apartment with other families.
Pero desde el día que me mudé a vivir en las trailers, dedico más tiempo a mis amigos.
But from the day I was able to move into a trailer with my family, I was able to give more children to my amigos, to my friends.
Yo asisto a la escuela para poder superarme y también trato más de involucrarme en las actividades de la comunidad.
I'm going to school to get better at things, and I'm also trying to get involved in community activities.
Mi esposa y yo trabajamos muy duro por casi 2 años para arreglar esta traila.
My wife and I have been working very hard for almost 2 years to fix this trailer.
Saliendo de mi trabajo, siempre trabajando tiempo completo y después arreglar nuestra traila por las tardes.
I leave my full-time job and then I go home and fix the trailer in the afternoons.
Tanto yo como otras personas hemos trabajado muy duro en arreglar nuestras viviendas.
I and other people have worked very hard to fix our homes.
Y se me hace muy injusto que otros inversionistas vengan y nos saquen de nuestros hogares.
And it seems very unfair to me that other investors come and take us out of our homes.
Solo porque no tenemos ninguna protección.
Just because we have no protection.
Somos muchas familias que quedaremos sin hogar Y yo por experiencia propia puedo asegurarles que es muy duro y triste.
And there's a lot of us that would be homeless, and by my personal experience, I can tell you that it's very difficult and very sad
Cuando no puedes darle un techo seguro a tu familia.
when you cannot give your family a safe home.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Gloria Contreras.
Good afternoon. My name is Gloria Contreras.
Vivo en Shadow Home Mobile Park,
I live in Shadow Home Mobile Park,
que está ubicado en 7120 North Killisworth Street.
which is at 7120 Northeast Killingsworth Street.
Tengo 4 hijos de 16, 14, 13 y 7 años.
I have 4 children, ages 16, 14, 13, and 7.
Para mi familia, este es nuestro hogar.
For my family, this is home.
Hemos vivido por más de 12 años ahí.
We've lived there for more than 12 years.
Mis hijos han hecho maravillosos amigos y muy buenos vecinos,
My children have made great friends and very good neighbors.
los cuales compartimos un jardín comunitario y la cosecha también es compartida entre la comunidad.
We share a garden with the community, and we also share the harvest.
Nos cuidamos unos a otros, nuestros hogares y de extraños.
We take care of each other, our homes, and we take care of strangers.
Hay personas mayores las cuales saben que en alguna necesidad o emergencia
There are elderly people who know that if in any kind of time of need or in an emergency,
ahí estamos para apoyarlos y ayudarles.
we will be there to support them and help them.
Tenemos acceso a clínicas, indos para fútbol de los niños, primarias, kinders y un nuevo maravilloso parque.
We have access to doctor's offices, soccer for children, parks, and a lot of things.
Para mí, mis hijos, mis vecinos son mi comunidad.
For myself and my children, my neighbors are my community.
Solo es un poco de mi historia.
That's just a little bit of my story.
Thank you.
The next 3 are Andreas Oswell, Andre Tremolat, and Monique Smiley.
Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Monique Smiley, and I'm the Communications and Movement Building Director at Welcome Home Coalition. As you know, we are a regional housing coalition comprised of over 65 organizations that are committed to working with local jurisdictions to advance new and emerging funding sources to create more affordable homes. I'm here today to show my support for the Manufactured Dwelling Park project. This effect of the zone change would provide long-term housing stability for about 3,000 low-income families who could otherwise face displacement. This zone change is an opportunity to also redress the inequities in the past on land use and preserve affordable homes and parks. As you all know, housing insecurity is touching everyone in our city, and we don't have the rental stock needed. The biggest opportunity for folks who need affordable housing is the opportunity to live within their communities and to preserve their existing homes. We have a vulnerable supply right now in our region, and only a small fraction of affordable homes remain for families and communities of color. A study showed that in the largest 100 metro regions, mobile home residents spend on average 40% less on housing costs than those living in non-mobile homes in the same metro area. As residents are hard-pressed to find alternative housing at similar costs, mobile homes provide a solution for our affordable housing shortage, which is why we need this zone change in order to sustain all mobile home parks that will continue to serve future generations. Manufactured housing is an essential, unique part of the affordable housing continuum and must be preserved. They are a platform for success, and the parks provide community gathering for residents. The Welcome Home Coalition believes that Portland needs to address all the required tools to solve the housing crisis, and I urge you to advance the proposal on mobile home zoning change.
Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners, and thank you for your patient attention today. I'm Andre Tremolet. I'm a 20-year resident of Northeast Portland and a research associate at PSU School of Urban Studies and Planning.
And I can't tell you how thrilling it is to have a captive audience to listen to some words from my doctoral dissertation on the closure of manufactured housing communities from 2001 through 2007 during the last real estate boom. During that time, approximately 2,800 households were impacted when 69 communities closed throughout the state, many of them in the metro area. While I can't match the eloquent presence of the last group, what I'd like to do is to provide some facts that I learned from a detailed case study of the closure of the Thunderbird Mobile Club in Wilsonville. I discovered that that closure had both financial and non-financial impacts. Financially, 3/5 of the homeowners just abandoned their homes, typically because they were too old to move safely, moving them cost too much, or because there was no place to put them. For many, it represented a loss of their largest financial asset. Some still had a loan on the house that no longer existed, and therefore 4% declared bankruptcy. Most lost access to affordable housing. Only 8% were able to move their homes to a new location at a 2007 cost of $20,000 to $30,000 per home. But equally important, perhaps more important, was the human toll. Involuntary displacement triggered something known as relocation stress syndrome in many residents, particularly older residents. Anxiety, apprehension, confusion, depression, and loneliness. They experienced something now known as root shock, the loss of community and life-affirming connections to people in place. Most tragically, 6% of the homeowners died, a rate likely higher than the expected mortality rate for that population. Even money can't fix those kinds of impacts on the human spirit. So now is the time to act. You know that. I just wanted to add these facts and a lot of pages to the hard work that's already been done in favor of this ordinance. Thank you. Thank you. I finished it. It was published in 2010, and Cy Adler was my dissertation chair, and it was one of a handful of doctoral dissertation grants funded that year by the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us. Appreciate it. Good afternoon.
Mayor, Council, my name is Andres Oswell. I'm a member of the Planning and Sustainability Commission, but I'm here speaking for myself today. I won't restate what others have said better than I could, but I'll focus on sharing my experience. During the time that this proposal was at the Planning Commission, Living Cully offered the members of the commission to come and take a tour, and I was fortunate to be able to see 2 of the mobile home parks in Cully myself. I was later invited back for a community meeting, and what I saw there showed me what the testimony today and research has told us repeatedly. These homes, these parks aren't just inexpensive housing, they're also a source of community. They're places where families, older adults can live. They're places for people with fixed incomes. The testimony we saw was incredibly inspirational, one of the largest turnouts we've seen, and showed how important that this is to members of our community. One piece in particular that resonated with me was a mother who was talking about how living in a mobile home park allowed her to not just have a housing she could afford, but also to have a better quality of life for her kids. It allowed her to be able to take her kids to the movies, which is something that is easy to take for granted and often gets lost in conversations about meeting basic needs and necessities. It's a unique low-barrier housing type, and I think that something I appreciate about the policy is its creativity. It allows a way to preserve these parks, but also allows a financial incentive through density that could create forms of funding that would provide for maintenance that these parks need. This policy is a good first step, but further work is needed. We all know that there are problems with mobile home parks. They're not perfect, but those problems deserve the city's attention and support. I believe this is also mentioned in the Planning Commission letter, but some areas in particular I'd like to draw your attention to is increasing home repair funds. Now that this zoning changes would hopefully go into effect, there is a sense of stability and permanence with these parks that makes them a more persuasive investment for home repair funds. These homes are older and many of them need repair and replacement. We saw with Oak Leaf Trailer Park the potential for community and nonprofit ownership. I think that this will hopefully be the first. We also saw through it how complicated it is, and I encourage you to continue exploring and supporting ways that we can keep these parks in permanence. We need further tenant protections, both on a state and local level, and lastly, organizational support. Not every neighborhood has the organizational bandwidth that Cully does. They need further help organizing and supporting the residents of these parks, and even Cully needs more resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, all three of you.
The next three are Lisa Rogers, Rich Kaufman, and Mary Kyle McCurdy.
Good afternoon. Was there, Carla, was there one other individual?
If Rich Kaufman is not here, the last person who signed up is Cameron Harrington.
Is Rich here? Oh, he is.
Oh,
He's
coming
coming
down.
from downstairs.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Would you like me to start?
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, thank you for hearing us today. My name is Lisa Rogers, and I work with CASA of Oregon. Over the last 12 years, CASA has been working to preserve manufactured home parks through resident ownership. To date, we have converted 12 parks to resident ownership in Oregon and are working on our 14. We believe that resident ownership is the key to preserving affordability, building wealth, and building empowerment for the residents of those communities. Manufactured housing is the largest supply of affordable housing in the country. According to Prosperity Now, 74% of all residents in mobile home parks own their homes. And why this is important is because manufactured housing is, or in parks, is a kind of it's a hybrid, right? You got home ownership and you have rental. So in terms of you own your home, but you lease your space. And if a park closes, that home is typically either the only asset or the largest asset that these folks have. So not only are they losing their home, they're losing any wealth that they might have as well. So we really urge you to go ahead and approve this. We applaud you for bringing it up. It is a very important piece of our affordable housing inventory in Oregon. Thank you.
Can I ask you one question?
Yes.
I know anecdotally that the manufactured home industry generally, but particularly the prefab industry, has taken off here in Oregon. Are we seeing more manufacturers of mobile homes here in Oregon providing safe and environmentally sound homes?
They are building the homes to a higher level of efficiency, as well as they're much better made than they were previously. I don't believe that there are more manufactured home builders in the community now than there have been.
But there are some.
There are some, yes.
I know that when we did a project with some prefab units in Lentz about 6 or 7 years ago, they were shipped up I-5 from a place outside of Salem where they were actually built, and they were beautiful. And then they were just put on, trucks and shipped up the highway.
Yes. Yeah, and we are really actually currently piloting a project in Southern Oregon with Energy Trust of Oregon, USDA Rural Development, to replace the homes in one of the parks that have been converted to resident ownership. It's a great collaboration, and we believe we'll be able to replace many of those homes with a 1% loan, and then a lot of down payment assistance through various sources to make it so that it would be affordable, because the residents in these parks are typically very, very low income. So like I say, if they lose this housing, there's nowhere for them to go. You know there's no vacancies. There's no vacancies for anybody, let alone for poor people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler and members of the City Council. My name is Mary Kyle McCurdy, Deputy Director of 1,000 Friends of Oregon. 1,000 Friends urges you to support the proposed ordinance before you. We were actively involved in the Anti-Displacement Portland Coalition, which advocated for the anti-displacement policy that the city has adopted in its comprehensive plan and is reflected in Plan Policy 5.37, which specifically refers to preservation of mobile home parks. Not only is this ordinance a key component to turn that policy into action, but it also helps the city carry out its obligations under statewide Land Use Planning Goal 10, which requires Portland and all other cities to enact land use measures that encourage the availability of adequate numbers of needed housing units at price ranges and rent levels that are commensurate with the financial capabilities of Oregonians. Needed housing includes specifically manufactured dwellings. You've heard from many eloquent speakers of the human benefits of preserving the existing mobile home parks as one of the most cost-efficient and immediate impact steps that you can take. So I won't go over those, but I do want to address the issue of Measure 49, which has been raised before you. We've submitted written testimony to the Planning and Sustainability Commission, and I have copies here of testimony to the City Council as well. Addressing this in detail, I'm sure you've heard from your city attorney on this also. But briefly, we do not believe that Measure 49 poses a barrier to the city adopting this proposed ordinance. Among other things, qualifying to make or show a Measure 49 claim is more challenging than was described earlier. But nonetheless, this ordinance has built into it ways in which the value of these mobile home parks will increase to the mobile home park landowners through increased densities, transfer development credits, density bonuses for affordable housing, that sort of thing. But just as importantly, if a mobile home park landowner was able to establish a grounds for compensation under the Measure 49 statute, the city has the ability to, quote, authorize the claimant, the landowner, to use the property without application of the land use regulation to the extent necessary to offset the reduction in the fair market value of the property. This gives, we believe, the city the flexibility to tailor application of the zone to address compensation issues. Complete waiver might not be necessary. In other words, you have flexibility for how to deal with this if a case does arise on a case-by-case basis. But adopting it now also sends a message for the future and future new mobile home park land owners, because if you buy the land after this ordinance is passed, if it's passed, there is no Measure 49 claim available then. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Good afternoon.
Hi, my name's Rich Kaufman. I don't have a script or anything. I just kind of have a unique experience. Lived in Texas and close to the Austin area. And I keep hearing this Measure 49, and it seems like they went that path. And they built condominiums and, made it and put profits over people. Well, what happened is the reason people come there, the art, the culture, the nice living, those people left. And now, if you look at the statistics of, how much money Austin is making, it's way downhill. And I don't want to see Portland do that. And Texas ran out of water before California did. I watch lakes disappear to streams and streams disappear, and huge forest fires. And I knew I had to get out of there. I mean, my only agenda is to stay alive. I live on a very small fixed income. And, all of us, we come in today, we see the smoke. California's burning, Washington's burning. This is the place that has water. This is the place that's still here. This is why I'm here. I came here. I bought an old TriMet bus that was used in the TriMet busing system that had been converted to a coach. That's, I don't know, the depth that I'm involved in this Portland idea. And I think if we start putting profits over people, it's not going to end well. You've already had a huge influx from California, and you're going to have another. And you're going to have one from Washington and maybe Canada. This is not affordable housing. This is keeping people alive. You know, everybody wants to float around numbers and this and that. You know, who cares if someone loses $10,000 if someone else loses their child? You know, how long until the redwoods burn? I mean, it barely hopped over them this time. This world is really changing. And some people can sit in kind of a gilded cage and say, no, it's not, no, it's not. Well, I'm here to say it is. When forest fires get right to your house, a light turns on. When your county runs out of water, and it goes from your toilet to the water treatment, to your faucet, to your toilet, to the water treatment, to the faucet, you change. You become human again. And I guess, be human.
Thank you. Appreciate your being here. Commissioner
Question
Salzman?
for Mary Kyle McCurdy. So there's one mobile home park that's being left out of this. That's the Fox Run. And apparently it's in prime industrial land, meaning that if we were to extend this protection or the incentives in this proposal to that property, we could be sued for taking prime industrial land without finding replacement land. So two questions. Is that something Thousand Friends of Oregon would likely appeal if we made that decision? And secondly, who else would likely appeal that decision, or who would likely appeal that decision?
Commissioner Salzman, I cannot answer the second question. I don't know who might. Although, on the first one, I am not familiar with the details of this particular site. Its size, where it's located, is there something unique about it, like a rail access line? Or is it simply a piece of land zoned industrial that's fairly fungible?
I'm not an expert. I think it's the latter. I don't
That's
think it has
what
real
your
access.
findings.
It's a fairly nice mobile home park village, but it is in industrial land, yeah.
So I believe that your staff said, although I certainly don't want to speak for them, that it's not, you could do it, but you'd have to make findings about it and relate them to the requirements to provide sufficient industrial land. So I'll speak more generically and not to that piece of land in particular. If a city has an obligation to provide up to a 20-year land supply for all urban uses, and if you were to convert industrial land that brings you beneath the amount of land for the planning period, you would have to make that up in some way. If I heard it correctly, this won't bring you beneath, but it'll bring you close if you were to apply this to that piece of land. However, I believe it's on Metro's regionally significant industrial land map. Like I said, I'm just was hearing it, more of the details of it today as I came in. So there may be some other steps you have to go through with Metro and with LCDC, but it's something that you could do. We are not contemplating appealing that or suing the city on that. Whether anyone else would, I don't know. I don't know who owns the land or anything about it. So,
okay. Thank you.
Just in general, can the city change an industrially zoned land without any findings in the ordinance?
I think you'd have, I'm going to defer to your city attorney, but I think you'd have to make findings. Yes. Yeah. There's some specific state statutes and administrative rules related to industrial land conversion and the need to make findings. And is this regionally significant industrial land? There's probably a higher standard. But, findings are, you make those every day, don't you?
Can I just ask another question? It's not related really to the legislative matter before us, but over the last few years, I've increasingly seen a divergence, almost a disconnect between industrial land and job creation.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing applications for use of industrial land that don't promote a job creation agenda. Mm-hmm. And that includes storage units or facilities that operate autonomously and independently. Is it, at some point in the future, is it time for us to take another look at Goal 9 and update it?
Commissioner Fish, yes, and it's past time. There is something about the economic activity generated by land, the employment that's generated by land.
Just seems like some of our assumptions are wildly out of date.
And a few years ago, Metro did a study looking at large industrial employers and large lot industrial users, and those are not the same. As you mentioned, a warehouse uses a lot of land. It might not have a lot of employees in it. A hospital, which sometimes is on industrial land, employs a lot of people. They're not all the same, and we should be looking at them in a more sophisticated manner. Of course, a lot of industrial goes on in buildings that look like office buildings and they're downtown.
Yeah.
We definitely need to.
And let me be clear, this is separate and apart from the matter that's
Yes.
before us today, but we've seen this time and time again come forward, and it does seem like we need to update our thinking about the jobs nexus.
I agree, having seen a great growth in storage units also in some pretty good locations for some other uses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, all three of you. I understand we have one more. Is that right, Carla?
Correct.
Very good.
Cameron Harrington.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler and commissioners. Here to thank you for the efforts of your offices, your staffs, and specifically the staff at the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability to get us to this point today. I think in addition to the content of this policy being an excellent example of equity in action, the process of developing this proposal is an example that other bureaus should learn about and follow. The Bureau staff, led by Joe Zender, Tom Armstrong, Leslie Lum, proactively worked with community members, with mobile home park residents, hired temporary staff to canvass mobile home parks around the city to make sure they understood the content and implications of this proposal. And it was that work that made this process, which would otherwise be very complicated and confusing for anyone. People understood what the implications were for them and for their housing. And so I'd like to commend the Bureau and as well as the staff of your offices for their work behind the scenes to get this onto the agenda and get this to the vote today. I'd also like to again point out that this really is an example of the city prioritizing equity and prioritizing the interests of those people who would otherwise have the fewest options. As we've heard today, most people who live in manufactured housing parks don't have as many options as you and I do in terms of where we can live. And it is incumbent upon the city to take this action today to prioritize, to proactively protect those homes and those communities. And the roots of today's actions, I think we can trace back to the equity commitments made in the Portland Plan, and then those were made more concrete in the comprehensive plan, as Commissioner Fritz referred to, and today to actually implement those commitments in a very concrete way, I believe is a strong precedent that we can apply to other kinds of policy in the housing realm and in other forms of policy. I also want to highlight that none of this would have happened if it weren't for the organized efforts of manufactured housing residents across the city coming together, meeting with you and your staff, meeting with the Bureau, door knocking in parks across town from the ones where they themselves live in order to get the word out about this policy. And many of those folks are here in the room today, but hundreds of others were not able to come down to City Hall during the afternoon. But they have all signed a huge banner that we have downstairs that says, "We love our mobile homes." And after the conclusion of this hearing, we'll be gathering downstairs to take a group photo, and we'd like to invite you and members of your staff to join us for that photo.
Very good, and that was good testimony, and I want to make sure you get credit for it. Could you state your name for the record?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Cameron Harrington with Living Cully.
Thank you, and for those of you who made the sign, I apologize. I know there was an interest in bringing it into the chamber. We have some rules on the side of banners, but I'll be delighted to see it downstairs.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it. Very good. So that concludes our public testimony. Colleagues, do we want to bring staff up for further questions? Please come back up, if you don't mind, Tom. Commissioner Saltzman.
Okay, so, Mayor, I support this proposal, but I am not prepared to support this proposal today unless we have a clear path to provide the same protections and incentives for mobile home park owners in this package to the owners of the Fox Run and the residents of the Fox Run. It's not equitable to leave everybody, to include everybody but one mobile home park for sort of academic, paper-pushing, planning type speak, which the residents, if they find out that the property gets sold out from underneath them, will never understand. And I would never be able to explain it to them. So in order for me to support this package today, I need a clear path that culminates in a time certain before this body that will consider the Fox Run providing the same incentives to the owners of Fox Run and protections to its residents. So help us get there.
The option that I would suggest that we do is that you pass the ordinance as amended today, and that what we would do is bring forward a separate ordinance for a map change for Fox Run itself. That would have to go as a legislative project through the Planning and Sustainability Commission, which would require, one of the problems, in addition to the findings and amending the findings today or tomorrow to include it in this package, is that the owners.
He's not proposing that, Tom.
I know. I'm just.
We don't even have to hypothesize.
So
he's just asking for the path forward.
So the path forward would be to send it to the Planning and Sustainability Commission. We'll send out the required 35-day notice. We will find a time in September or October for the Planning and Sustainability Commission to make a recommendation, and we will bring it back to you later this fall, as soon as we can get it through the PSC and back here with just the Fox Run and just the map change for that.
And if it, refresh my memory, if it doesn't pass the PSC, it could still come to us for consideration or not?
If the council directs BPS to bring it to the Planning and Sustainability Commission, then it will come back to council.
Do we need to do that
So
today?
do they need an amend the ordinance with that direction?
Yes, we can amend
Okay.
the ordinance to include a directive, yeah. Let me draft something.
Okay.
My
So by
suggestion,
late fall, we could have this in front of us, this question. Okay.
my suggestion is we not amend the ordinance and keep this clean
I
as
agree.
has been proposed.
I
I
agree.
think if there's a commitment made to Commissioner Saltzman that it will come back to council, I'm confident it will come back to council, and his office between now and January 1st will be highly motivated to see that it comes back to council. And Dan, I would urge you to go that route rather than amending this today. We've been given, I think, clear sense of keeping this as unencumbered as possible.
Yes, and I would say, given the level of support that we saw at the PSC, I would not have concerns about it not getting out of PSC and back here in an expedited manner.
In a timely manner.
Yeah, in a timely manner.
Timely manner means October.
You can't do that fast.
Get it to PSC in October. We still have a 35-day notice that we have to send out before the PSC can hear it.
Commissioner Saltzman ends his term sometime at the
Yeah,
end
I'm
of the
running
year.
on a fixed clock here.
Right.
Can you
We're
give
aware of
us
that.
some sense that it would come back to council while he's still a member of the body?
We will make our best effort to get it through the end of the year. I can't promise, given council's agendas at the end of the year and the way they get congested, but we will make our best effort to get back here.
Or we'll have to go to Dan's house. Good. Does that verbal commitment satisfy your requirements, Commissioner?
Not really, but I mean, I appreciate the efforts, but I also see, the clock easily running out on this and me being in no position to influence it to get it before this body while I'm still here. And
Mayor,
that's
you
not
can
to say,
solve-
not
you
to
can
say to
solve that,
somebody, yeah. I just don't have a lot of comfort that this is going to get back to us in a timely manner. And I think it's important. I mean, I'm not talking about myself so much. I'm talking about people who live in Fox Run and the owners of the Fox Run.
I think it's a principled stand, and I will make every effort as mayor to make sure that this comes back to the council prior to your departure, that you will have a chance to see it through.
Yep. Thank you.
Commissioner Fritz, yes, you bet.
I agree. It's a principled stand, and there's 56 of these properties. 55 of them desperately need this advancement today to provide some incentives to the owners to keep the current uses. I just want to remind you about 3rd and Harrison, a third of an acre that we could not rezone from industrial because of appeals by the industrial property owners. So rezoning industrial, and also Harbour of Hope at Terminal 1. Rezoning industrial land is really difficult, and so and should be considered in the context of the whole community and the economic needs of the city. This is prime industrial land, as has been said. It's in the Harbour District and the Airport Way District. I don't know whether I will support adding this when it comes back, and I don't know if the Planning Commission will either. I think what we're all committing to is that the Planning Commission will send us a recommendation, whether it's yes or no, and then we'll have a council discussion and a decision, yes or no.
Absolutely. Nor can we make that finding today.
Correct.
It has to come
Mayor,
back
I wasn't
through the
here
process.
earlier, and I
Commissioner
apologize
Fish.
at the beginning of the hearing. Have we adopted the amendments?
They're on the table.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate the discussion, appreciate Commissioner Fritz reminding us how difficult this is, but I think we owe those residents a shot at taking it.
Yep. Here. Good. Any further questions of staff? We'll call the roll on the technical amendments 1 through 6. Carla, please call the roll.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. The amendments are adopted. The main motion is amended. Please call the roll.
Saltzman?
This is on the final package?
This is the final.
Okay.
Adoption of the ordinance.
Well, thanks, everybody, for your advocacy and the Bureau of Planning Sustainability and the Planning Sustainability Commission and all the residents who worked so hard to get this proposal before us in such a timely manner. This is an important step we need to take, and I'm pleased to support it. And so, as I just said a minute ago, I hope we will provide the same protection and incentives to the residents and owners of the Fox Run development. Aye.
Udaly?
I'd like to thank Cameron Harrington and Living Colley and all the advocates and community members who worked on this issue, and everyone who came today to give testimony. Thank you as well to the staff at BPS, to my colleagues who supported and facilitated this work, to my staff, of course. I vote aye.
Fritz?
As Mary Kyle McCurdy pointed out, these zoning changes uphold a number of specific anti-displacement policies in the adopted 2035 comprehensive plan. And again, Cameron Harrison pointed out that grew out of the Portland plan. So thank you, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioner Daly, the whole council for joining me in championing this effort, which began with the previous city councils. Thank you, Tom Armstrong and Susan Anderson, Joe Zender, all the staff, Shannon Berner over there. A lot of work has gone into getting this done. There was a complaint in my emails that this has been done way too quickly. I think 2 years is pretty darn quick for all the hoops that needs to go through. So thank you very much for making sure that we do go all through those hoops. Lauren King in the City Attorney's Office, thank you. Claire Adamsick and Tim Krell and my staff are particularly meaningful and helpful, and Claire was very much a part of crafting the policy in the first place. Thank you, all the community members who came here today. My notes say you had to juggle work or family obligations to be here. In one case, you had to juggle the family obligation. Having that young man on your shoulders was really wonderful, so thank you. That was my favorite image from today, I think. Thank you to the translator who facilitated many people being able to participate fully, and to everybody who arranged for that. And finally, thank you to Pamela Ferguson in Hayden Island, who took me around their manufactured home community there. I may have been one of the few candidates for City Council who has actually canvassed not once but twice in mobile home communities. Ed Guerin was also part of that community. These are wonderful communities, wonderful places to live with a real sense of belonging. And I'm very happy that we've just opened the new park in Cully, built with Verde and Living Cully, that is very close to several of the manufactured home parks on Killingsworth Street, and how wonderful that we're providing parks near to where wonderful communities are. So thank you very much for all of your work. Aye.
Fish?
Commissioner Fritz, I can't believe you mentioned Ed Guerin. In 2008, I think I got the tour following your tour. You know, it's not yet 3:30, and so someone in this room is going to say, we have just handled a big lift around a legislative change, and we're about to conclude final adoption of amendments and speeches in an hour and a half. And what I would like to say in response to that is, this thing has been cooked for a long time. It is carefully constructed. It has broad community support, and there is a sense of urgency for us to act today. And that's why this is moving with some speed and dispatch. I want to thank the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability for all the work they did. Joe Zender, and congratulations, Joe, on taking on the interim director title. And we wish you best of luck. I want to thank my colleagues for their leadership on this issue. I want to thank the community for coming out and testifying today, especially community members under the age of 10. And I think we had a lot of them here today. And this is democracy in action, so you got to see how we operate, and your presence here was greatly appreciated. We're taking up a proposal today to broaden the incentives for affordable housing. It is one of a number of key initiatives taken up by this council. I am proud of the progress we are making. We have more work to do. Today, I vote aye.
Wheeler.
I'll be brief. Portland, as you heard, has 57 manufactured dwelling parks citywide, providing affordable housing for nearly 3,000 households. And the vote we're taking here today, because I can count the votes, it honors the intent of the comprehensive plan through this action. And it also increases the diversity of affordable housing options that are available in this city. There are so many people to thank, and I know I'm leaving people off of this list, and I hope collectively we have hit most of those who are certainly deserving of our thanks. And first of all, I want to thank my colleagues on the City Council, particularly Commissioners Fritz and Daly, who brought this forward with us today. I want to thank my staff, in particular Kyle Chiswick and Cupid Alexander, who worked tirelessly on this, the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability staff. You guys always impress me, Tom and Joe and the whole team. And I know that the Housing Bureau is well represented here, and they've been active contributors to this process. And at the end of the day, we're ensuring a very important balance and increasing housing options. And all of this, of course, is supported by the findings. And so I think it's a great package. It is supremely important. It is yet one more tool of many that are in the toolbox to ensure that the people who work in this community can afford to live here. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted as amended. Thank you.
Yeah.